So good morning. My name is Greg Phillips and welcome to the Phillips Wealth Counsel podcast. My guest today is Kelly Proulx. Kelly is the founder of Mindful Nutrition and Wellness up in Peterborough, Ontario, and she spent decades as a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Great to be here, Greg.
How's everything in Peterborough?
Pretty good. All things considered, in the middle of COVID, I think things are pretty good.
Good. And how are the girls?
They're awesome. They're doing really well. Yeah.
Good to hear. So I've got a list of questions here. I think they're relatively straightforward, but why don't we get into it? And I'll start with what I think is probably an easy one to start with. How and why did you become a registered dietitian?
Great question. And that feels like a really, really long time ago. I think I graduated in 93 from my undergrad and 94 from my internship. So it was, nutrition was always something I was very interested in. Did lots of reading, just was kind of something that piqued my interest. My brother also was diagnosed with cancer when he was 13. So, and he's a bit younger than me. So, and he's great. He's doing well. He's awesome. But we just started doing some research on, because he was losing weight and we wanted him to be really healthy. So that kind of kept it going a little bit more in terms of what can we feed him to keep him going and to keep
so that started to kind of pique your interest into the whole field.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just got really lucky. I looked into it. I met a dietitian. I don't know, things just kind of worked out.
Oh, good. And one of the things that I'm not clear on, but maybe for the viewers and myself, you can clarify, what's the difference between a nutritionist and a registered dietitian?
Yeah, another great question, because it can be very confusing. So a registered dietitian has to have a 4-year undergrad and then would pursue either an internship or nowadays they do a master's. Okay. They then have to write an exam and they have to also belong to the College of Dietitians of Ontario and carry $2 million worth of liability insurance. So, which is awesome. And that's to protect the public should we recommend something that doesn't go well or something like that. There's something to protect the public. Now, nutritionist is a tricky one because it's not a regulated term. So sometimes we have nutritionists that have their master's degree and call themselves nutritionists, but often we have nutritionists that did a college or an online program and then will call themselves a nutritionist kind of thing. So not that they're not knowledgeable at all, but very different set of education, very different set of criteria. And they recently will say, they've come out with the terms registered nutritionist, but they're not a regulated body. They don't report into a college like we do. So I just always tell people, just do your research, find out what their background is, find out if they're regulated and see what's right for you.
Yeah, it's similar to our industry, right? Sometimes, and it's difficult for the public because the terms that are thrown out, investment advisor, planner, this and that, and, I guess, to be fair to everybody, not all planners, advisors are necessarily the education background is the same, or there's overlap, but like you said, it's good to kind of investigate and figure out what credentials the people have and what their experience is. So interesting. Absolutely. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Are there any new developments in your field right now that new things that you see that are happening that people should be aware of?
Oh, there's so much. It's a real changing field all the time. New science, new information. We just, the 2020 obesity guidelines were just released last year, and that's been a really interesting one. We're learning so much more about obesity and how we want to treat it like a chronic disease, kind of like you would treat maybe a type 2 diabetes or a heart disease or something like that. So it was a huge working group of very smart people that put together the 2020 guidelines. First came out in 2006. They were just released in 2020, and the pediatric guidelines will come out next year as well. And believe it or not, we're seeing just a large number of kids with obesity, which is really disheartening. So I think one of the biggest things that I see is that new is the obesity guidelines.
And do you think COVID has had an impact on that? Is that maybe, or is it just was a
Absolutely.
trend that was already there?
It was already there, Greg, but COVID hasn't helped at all in both adults and definitely in children, right? They just less active, stuck at home, tons of screen time. And we have so much processed foods out there that they have access to, right? More so than when you and I grew up. Oh my goodness,
Sure.
it's so different.
Yeah, when you think about it, less and less people, like I don't know about your parents, but my parents, they had the vegetable garden, and
Yeah.
I'd have to look pretty hard to find somebody that has a vegetable garden, right, these days. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. And you were probably the same as me. We had 3 channels, right? We had 3 channels. And so
Yeah.
we turned the TV off because there was nothing to watch. Now they can watch something 24/7 if they want.
And on their laptops and their phones and all
Yeah.
that stuff. It used to be go play outside, go on your bike or go play road hockey or whatever the case may be. So interesting.
Absolutely. Very different.
Before we move on from that, do you have like I've read stuff in the past about the stats in the US that were kind of, this is going back 15 years ago, but it said 70% of the people in the US, I think, don't quote me on this, were fit the definition of obese. What would that be in Canada? Do you have access to that, or?
Yeah, I just looked it up. I thought, well, you know what? I wonder if Greg's can ask me that. I'm not even kidding you. I just looked it up. So these are 2018 numbers. So they're saying 26.8% of Canadians 18 and older, or roughly 7.3 million, are obese.
Yeah.
So that would be a body mass index over 30. And then an additional 36.3% or 9.9 million would fit the overweight category, which is over a BMI over 25, which is not hard to do. So those numbers in total, 63.1% of Canadians are either overweight or obese. So that's, wow. And that's not kids. Kids, there's a lot for kids too, and I don't have the number. They said one in 10 children are living with excessive weight.
Wow. So it's something we need to, definitely pay attention to and start addressing, and otherwise it could be a lot bigger problems down the road, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
As I mentioned, you're a mom of 3 girls, and I'm sure you had lots of challenges growing up as a mom and as a dad. We always do. But how did you deal with the challenge of getting them to adopt healthy lifestyles?
Yeah, absolutely. My kids have been known to say the quote, "I wish you weren't a dietitian." So if they were here, they probably have lots of things to tell you. But some of the biggest things, I mean, as a parent, it's a big job. And I always say to parents that I work with, where's the parenting book? Where's the guideline? How do you do this, right? In so many ways. But one of the biggest factors in helping a child learn to be what we call a competent eater, which is someone who chooses healthy foods more of the time as they get older, is, being a great role model. You're the one buying the food. We want you to be the one cooking the food. You're the one, if you're eating your fruits and vegetables, if you're serving your fruits and vegetables, they're going to be more likely to eat them as well. So I see we did a lot of, cooking at home, a ton of family meals at the table without screens. We were losing that. We're losing families cooking, and we're losing families eating at the table together without screens. So, my house was like yours, probably very busy. We had lots of sports, everything going on, but there always was that family meal. Sometimes it might be 2 people eating together, or we all ate early because then we had to go out and, do some sporting activities and that sort of thing. But it's so important to be that role model and provide those healthy foods for your family and eat together at that family table. It's huge.
Right. So role model, I keep hearing role model, and I think that, like in other aspects of our lives, is very key, obviously, with diet and nutrition as well.
Yeah, so. Yeah, and exercise too, right? Mm-hmm. Get out and be active. Their kids will follow.
Right. Good to know. So, Kelly, you touched upon it in your previous answer there about, you had sports activities to get to and things for the kids, and sometimes that's challenging. So for those people who kind of say, look, Kelly, my life's way too busy to be trying to eat healthy all the time. It's easier for me to just go to the drive-through. Sometimes people on the road or, through with their jobs, it's easier to just go through McDonald's or whatever. And coming home, they're trying to get a meal. and they're thinking, well, what's the easy thing? So how would you, what advice would you give them to address that, and how could they do it better?
Yeah, great question, because we've got very, very busy homes. We've got two parents working, or we've got a single family home, or that sort of thing. So it's a different time. So I think that one of the biggest things is to be prepared. So can you have an idea of what you'd like to serve for a meal? Often what I'll do the week before, I'll have a look at the flyers, what's on sale, what am I going to make for my meals? You know, if I've got ground beef on sale, then I'm thinking of ground beef recipes. If there's roast on sale, I'm thinking of roast recipes. And I have a plan going grocery shopping to what I'm going to make for those meals the next week. And it can be quick and easy. It doesn't have to be, we don't have an hour to make a meal. We certainly have to be quick and easy. But if we've planned it out, and if you're coming home at the end of the day and you know what you're going to serve, you've got the food in the house, you've got the meat thawed, you have a plan, you're going to be more successful than if you're driving home at 5 o'clock and you have no idea what you're going to serve. That's when you're more likely to hit a drive-through kind of thing, right? But it can be quick and easy. It can be breakfast for dinner kind of thing. What can I get on in 20 minutes? It can be soup and a sandwich. You can have a frozen pizza. Just throw some vegetables on the side of it, or a salad or something like that. We've got some amazing easy bagged salads or salads to go that we can take. Or even if you don't have a plan, pick up a rotisserie chicken and some salad and some buns or something like that. So that can be a nice way to have your family meal. It's really, really, really important. And if you're someone that's traveling and out, if you can't pack something with you, if it's not a meal, maybe it's snacks, fruit, nuts, that sort of thing. And if you do have to hit a drive-through, can you get the main but skip the fries? Or can you get some water and skip the sugary beverage kind of thing? So how can you make it a little bit better? Right.
And a lot of the, even the fast food places, I think, are conscious of that now. And they do have some healthier options, right? Like a salad, or definitely, like when I go, if I do go, which is very rarely, I'll always get the bottled water, never the pop and stuff like that. So good point. Good
Absolutely.
Point.
Yeah.
I'm just looking here at my other questions. You've spent many, many years doing this as a professional. And what would you see as the most significant barrier to healthy eating that people face? And how could you, what advice could you give them to overcome that barrier?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, Greg, is time. A lot of people are very aware of what they should do or could do or want to do, but sometimes time can be a barrier. Like you said about those busy households, I really, really want to put a nice meal on the table for my family and eat well, but I don't have time, kind of thing. So I think time is a big thing. Most people that I work with know what they should be doing, but time is, they have a really hard time with time because they're busy.
Right.
The other thing too, we know a lot more about weight and the body and obesity, and we're learning a lot about the brain and the brain's role in this, right? We're learning a lot about your genes and how your body is made up, and we also know that if you lose weight, your body's going to start trying to defend it and try to bring that weight back up. So it's very, very, very complicated,
right?
But it's such a great field, and there's so much that we can do. So even if your parents both had type 2 diabetes and you're at a higher risk for that, doesn't mean that you have to get it, right? My dad's 78. Both his parents had type 2. His siblings all have type 2, even though he's the oldest, he doesn't, because he's always been active. He's always watched his weight. He's always ate well. So just because, we've got lots going on in our history doesn't mean that we still can't do something about it.
Sure. What I'm hearing is, allocate time, have a plan, and make the right choices. Is that kind of fair?
Absolutely. And still leave a little room for, I don't know, red wine, a bit of chocolate, right? We still got to enjoy our life as well. But yes, You're absolutely right on that.
And the other thing that I, talking with you, and, I had my own ideas on this prior to the conversation, but, I hear you talking about having plans in place. It's not really that much different than investing, right? You need to have a plan in place, and you need to execute on it, and you need someone to assist you to execute on those plans.
You need the right person to help you out. Absolutely. Be an expert, right? Because I certainly am not an expert in the financial field. I leave that to you, right? I'm just like, Greg's looking after it, right? So,
but we have a plan, like you know, there's an overlay there, right? We have this plan, and you know, another thing that I've kind of witnessed is just talking to people that probably with their diets and stuff. Sometimes it's a yo-yo, which you know that could be like the market, right, going up and down. Sometimes they're doing all the right things, but they're probably plateauing, and they get frustrated. And you know, in investing, sometimes you're doing all the right things, you're executing on the plan, but really think the market isn't doing anything. It's going sideways or whatever. And that may be an extended period of time. And then all of a sudden, wow, you're like, wow, it's working. And I think that probably would apply to someone who's on a diet or trying to eat healthy. It may take some time to see the results of their work. Is that
absolutely?
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. It's all about, to me, it's about lifestyle changes. So putting the right plan in place and sticking to it and making changes that are sustainable for the rest of your life. Your analogy for finances might be simpler, put the right plan in place and adjust kind of as you go kind of thing. But yeah, it's important to stay the course. For me, you have one body, treat it well. For you, you're trying to build someone's retirement. So, you know, you have one chance to retire, I guess. I don't know what the analogy is for that, but similar.
Yeah, very good. You know, I'm sure you've been approached by people, maybe even today, me saying certain things, misconceptions about eating healthy. You know, they have these ideas in their head about what it means or what it takes to get there. So, you know, what would you say is maybe one or two of the biggest misconceptions people have?
I hear a lot about healthy eating is too expensive. It's really expensive to eat healthy. And it's really not. I mean, groceries in general are going up. But if you look at what does a bag of chips cost versus a bag of apples, and, you know, what's going to be better for your body and what's going to keep you full longer, right? You know, there's no comparison. Also helpful if people cook. So if you're buying a lot of processed foods, you know, that's going to be expensive. If you're able to cook and buy a chicken and then make soup out of it, all that sort of thing, healthy eating does not have to be expensive, but you kind of need to, again, have a plan, know what you want to do with it, and do some cooking. So that's one I hear a lot, is that I can't afford to eat healthy. It's too expensive, sort of thing.
And it's probably a bit of an excuse because they're not willing to put the time in or the work in that you've suggested earlier, perhaps. Maybe they're not conscious of, maybe they're not conscious of that, but maybe that's an easier go-to say it's too expensive.
Possibly, it's possible. And you know what? There's a lot of confusing information out there and conflicting information. If you look at, you know, books or on healthy eating or diets, there's so many. The diet industry is huge. So people kind of don't have a lot of time. They really want to lose weight, and so they grab on to the next quick fix or that next quick diet. And then, you know, often they lose weight, but then, like you said, they plateau, and then they get frustrated and they go back to eating the way they were. So I really work hard to get to know each patient and what they've tried in the past, what's worked, what hasn't, what little changes can we make in their life, very focused on them individually, to help them be successful.
Very good.
I talk people out of losing weight sometimes too, right? People, I want to lose 50 pounds. I'm like, well, you know, what makes life different at 50 pounds lighter than right now, kind of thing, right? So I want to set them up for success. I don't want them to, I can help anyone lose 50 pounds, right? It's just stop eating. There's lots of easy things, but I want it to be sustainable, and I want them to be successful and feel good about it.
Okay, very good. You touched on something there in your conversation about these, I guess you see on the TV or the internet, these ads about, you know, these, you know, you said quick fixes, and that's what they are, like lose X amount of weight in this time frame. And I'm interested to know, you know, what's your opinion about that? You kind of touched on it already, but do you think that these ads are also harming your industry and maybe creating a distrust for just dieting and good nutrition in general?
Yes, I think you're right. I always say to people, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? If you said I can make X amount of dollars in a couple of weeks, right? It sounds too good to be true, it probably is. and the quick fixes don't work, and really diets don't work. I don't believe in diets. Diet sounds like something that you do short term, and we don't. I want you to make healthy lifestyle changes that you can sustain forever. So this is kind of how you eat for the rest of your life, so that you can stay, I would say, let's stay in your clothes, right? Let's just stay in the clothes that you're in. Let's try to maintain weight or lose a little bit of weight. And I'm always thinking of, chronic disease. How do we prevent you from getting type 2 diabetes? How do we prevent you from getting heart disease? That sort of thing. And all the while feeling really good in the body that you've been given.
Right. Makes sense, right? To your point, something that you can sustain long-term versus, you hear a lot of times people do that, they've been dieting all their life, but it's like, when you talk to them, it's like, oh, I'm on this diet and it's for 3 months, and then they're off, and then they gain back the weight, and then they go, oh, I really got to go on this diet again, and they go back on it. So it's just back and forth, really. So to your point, from where I stand, it totally makes sense that you would put something in place that they can sustain, maybe a goal that isn't as big as what their original goal was, but they gradually approach that goal over time, right? So
absolutely.
Very good. Last question before we wrap up here. Do you have any go-to guilty pleasure foods that you would, I guess people refer to it, I train a lot, we call it cheating. So is there anything that, comes to mind for yourself?
Yes. Well, like I said, I always make room for red wine because I love it, and it makes me happy. And I always make room for chocolate, for sure. Maybe a little dark chocolate. Kind of keep it in the cupboard when I have a little bit of a sweet craving, then I will go for that. So those are probably my two favorites.
And those, correct me if I'm wrong, can be healthy in moderation.
Yeah, they can be healthy in moderation. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've read tons of things about dark chocolate and red wine, the benefits of them. So, so that's good.
Yeah, but I think it's important that you include some of those things that you love, right? If we're too restrictive, then that doesn't feel good to anyone. And that's where we start to have cravings. And then, I see lots of people that do that all or nothing, black and white. I'm either dieting or I'm eating, not in a way that I'm happy with, kind of thing. So let's be somewhere in the middle. Let's eat well most of the time, and let's put in some of those, those foods that we really enjoy, and live a good life, right?
Right. Sounds good. Is there anything that you want to add before we close this out, or that maybe we haven't touched on, or do you think we've covered most of the main points that you wanted to get across?
Yeah, I think most, Greg. I guess one of the things I do maybe want to highlight is I do deal with a lot of people kind of our age and older where they're kind of fighting against their body. You probably are in that situation because you sound like you're very active, so you're metabolically well. But I do see some people that end up being insulin resistant. And what I've learned over the years is that you can be insulin resistant up to 10 years before your body would recognize that you're maybe pre-diabetic or you're working towards type 2 diabetes. And so I've been helping a lot of people with that insulin resistance. And typically that looks like less processed foods, but also lower carbs. So lower carbs is a big, I'm not even going to call it a trend. It's new information that we're finding out, different from how I was trained. But I've been doing a lot of reading about it and a lot of education on it. Not for everyone. Certainly when you're younger, you don't need it. But when we start to get into and see some of these disease states and start to look at some of the blood work where it indicates this, I've been doing a lot of work with people on bringing down the carbohydrates that we have, typically those white carbs, the white flours, those processed things, and then all the sugars, because there's lots of sugars out there that people are consuming. So that's a neat one that I've been really enjoying, and we can see a significant impact on people, on their weight and their health and their blood sugars overall. So that's a neat one to mention as well too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. It's like everything, right? With science, as it evolves, we find out more and more, and the impact on the body and those kind of things. So it's great. Absolutely. That it sounds like you are keeping on top of everything and reading about new things, and which obviously helps all your patients.
Yes, lifelong learning. It's important, and there's so many new things, and it's a passion. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. Yeah, it's fun.
Good, good.
Yeah,
It was really great to see you. Good luck to you and the family as we start to reopen here coming out of COVID, and hopefully we all get back to a more normal life. And I'm glad that you're there helping people that are having those challenges. So thanks to Kelly Proulx. Once again, she's the founder of Mindful Nutrition and Wellness up in Peterborough, Ontario. I hope you enjoyed it. And for those people watching, if you could give us some feedback on the YouTube channel or leave comments on my LinkedIn. If you want to be included for future podcasts, please subscribe to YouTube or link to me on LinkedIn. So thanks again, Kelly, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.